Mud ball. Mud ball! Oh, mud ball. Mud ball. Mud ball. Mud ball.
Welcome to the Mud Ball Podcast. I'm here with two good friends of mine, Eoin and Enda. I wanted to talk to you guys about the new form of professional golf that seems to be the talk. The new golf league that's coming about, the Saudi Golf League, and the proposed Premier Golf League. So what do you guys think about this team format, this new format? Do you think it's going to be beneficial for the game of golf, or you think it's going to be a dead end in a few years?
Yeah, well, I mean, according to Greg Norman himself, obviously the founder of the Saudi Golf League, it's going to be the building blocks of a next generation golf experience. Now, how accurate that statement is, I'm not too sure, but for certain he's going to change it up a good bit, and the game is definitely not going to look the same. Obviously, you know, we're going to only have 48 players in the league, which is going to be very different to the way it's currently structured on the PGA Tour. So it'll be very interesting to see if that format will work, and what type of kind of 48 players he can get to go with the league originally. So I don't know what way it's work, but it's certainly going to be fascinating to watch.
Because right now, I think the only person signed up is Anthony Kim.
Yes, I've heard the rumors about that. All right, which it'll be amazing to see him back on a golf course after all that time. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing that.
What players do you think you have to see on that team format for you to actually start watching that tournament?
Well, I think it certainly couldn't just be made up of kind of lower kind of European Tour or DP World Tour kind of players now, or even Challenge Tour or Corn Ferry Tour players. It would really need to attract some of the top kind of players in the world, certainly the world's top 50, and unfortunately a lot of them have already declined to participate, or certainly looks like they're going to decline to participate in the event, which is a shame for Norman, but it shows that they're all united with the PGA Tour against this idea. So.
Yeah, just my understanding is it's called Live Golf Tour. I think I'm listening to a recent conversation from Greg Norman. There was very much an effort to remove the Saudi branding associated with this, and I think it's called Live Golf. I think is his company that he's using to sort of bring this tournament to fruition. Obviously, with Saudi Arabian money sponsoring all of that prize money. I think it's very difficult to understand where it can go with regard to team golf at large, because that's an extremely complicated format to run throughout a whole series of, I think it's 7 tournaments or maybe 8 tournaments. And the jury's out as to what that actually looks like, and will these teams remain the same? Will they be different each week? How will fans be able to follow them? So I don't know whether it's an effort to try and break away from the PGA by creating a new format, rather than an effort to particularly break away from the PGA at any rate to create an alternative league. I would be worried about the team format in its current form because we don't know a lot about it. I don't think it'll be as effective as they may believe it is. But I think this is a new league that's really trying to challenge the PGA. I think the team format to some potentially could be, for me, a distraction in how that goes about getting traction in the world today.
For the team formats, though, what kind of format do you think would work if this ever happens?
I think, as you mentioned just before we came on, if they'd done it in kind of like a college golf style format where 2 out of the 4 scores or 3 out of the 4 scores were to count, it might be the best option. Obviously, we know that it's going to be 48 players in the league, 12 teams, 12 captains picking 3 different players each week to be on their team, which does seem a little bit confusing, I suppose, as to how they're going to work a league format over 7 weeks if the teams are going to change every week. But apart from that, I'm struggling to see what other format they could go with.
Because Enda mentioned that Greg Norman wanted the teams to be like the Ryder Cup, where they
he had talked about in a recent podcast I heard him speak to, that he had attended a Ryder Cup and was the hairs were rising on his skin with regard to the atmosphere that was created. I felt that was if I may say so, a very naive comment by him, because the Ryder Cup has been a tournament that has been on for the last 60 or 70 years, and it involves countries, it involves nationalities, it doesn't involve money. And Greg Norman's carrot in this whole tournament was you'll earn millions of dollars of money. I don't even know what the purse is for the Ryder Cup. I'm not sure if there is a purse even for the Ryder Cup. It's about prestige, it's about honor, it's about commitment to your culture and your heritage. And that's always going to be very empathetic. Even the United States last night got into the World Cup qualifier, so they're going. Canada got in last week to the World Cup qualifier. We're not talking about the money they're earning. We're talking about the country and the presence of that national team representing their population in a tournament of great prestige. There's no way Greg Norman can replicate that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think to back up that point, he's talked about it being more enjoyable for fans by introducing other formats just more so than the teams. So you've got the likes of the shotgun starts, 54-hole tournaments now as opposed to 72 holes. Obviously, the player drafts every week. But, if you look at the overwhelming support of the guys that have come out from the PGA Tour, certainly as golf fans, they've grown up wanting to win major championships, wanting to play in Ryder Cups, just as you said. That's their dreams. I understand where Greg is coming from in the sense of golf might be more enjoyable to the casual fan through this format, but in terms of the golfers who have been grown up with the game throughout their whole life, that's what they've dreamt of growing up. They haven't dreamt of playing in the Saudi Golf League or even the Premier Golf League for that matter, as you said. So,
what if the teams were actually nationality based? Like if each country had a team participating in the Premier Golf League.
Again, I think that would really appeal to the casual fan and maybe even more so to the golf fan, because if you're able to support your own country through it, it would definitely 100% appeal to them more. But then,
because if that were to happen, it'd be kind of like a year-long Olympics.
I totally get it, but I think then if you look at the kind of the bias, and so, well, not bias, but the way it's set up, I mean, how many Americans are in the top 20 in the world right now? Realistically, if Greg Norman wants the top 48 players in the world to be in this league, a hell of a lot of them are going to be American. So I don't know, what are they going to do, an American A team, an American B team? What way would they do that? So all of a sudden then countries will be a very tough way to go down that route.
The beauty about country sport by nationality is it's always short and intermittent, because the soccer players have their own professional career. They play for their country, World Cup, European Championship every 2-4 years. No way countries are going to give over their flag for an 8 tournament event sponsored by Saudi Arabia that says you're representing 4.5 million Irish people or 330 million Americans. That won't work, because it just, the country continuity is too long. The country where to get the fans excited is a short tournament, 2 weeks, 3 weeks of World Cup soccer, 6 days for the Masters or whatever, or the Ryder Cup, I should say. But they're not going to do it every week, saying, "Okay, go Ireland because their 4 golfers are playing." No, it just won't work.
I think golf as an individual game, and those guys as very individual players, as you say, and representing the country, it means something when it's very short and seldom. But doing it every single week, all of a sudden, then it's going to be very hard, I think, to get the camaraderie together, in order to play for a team like that.
But don't you guys think it's the same way on PGA Tour? Because it's hard for golf fans to follow someone or follow certain players for an entire year in a span of 40 events.
How do you mean hard to follow them? I mean, in terms of, with the FedEx and the sort of the other championships towards the end, I think it's easy to follow them, because I think a lot of golfing fans take individual tournaments as separate events. They then look at the FedEx Cup as the accumulation of that. But whether they're playing in the Masters next week or whether they're playing in, I forget what was played last week. What was last week's? The World Championship, wasn't it? The playoffs. They don't look like we look at American football or baseball or English Premier League, as in there's 20 teams, there's 38 games, and where are we in game 10 or 12? They don't do that. Golfers look on the 4-day tournament, who won it? Well done. What does it mean to your FedEx Cup rating? That's a secondary event. They don't play it for the FedEx Cup standing. They play it for the individual prize money in the tournament that's there. The FedEx is an added benefit. I would suggest. That's where I think the league basis on golf is exceptionally hard, because you've got individual contractors. I mean, all other leagues that we're talking about have got signed contracts for 5 years to one team that says you can only play with us. So, that's the way you're going to be represented in this league. But they're to the point that Owen was speaking earlier on, if I'm playing with you this week on the second event for the Saudi tournament, and then I'm playing with another team next week, and I don't like the team, I mean, what am I doing playing in teams for? It just doesn't make sense. Which is a bonding in teams that golf can create.
I totally agree. And even going back to the Saudi point of view, a little bit off topic, but the first event is scheduled to be on June 9th in London, with the final and eighth event scheduled to be on October 30th. Again, we don't know whereabouts. But what are those guys supposed to do from November to May? I mean, the wraparound season, I have to say, in the PGA Tour, I think is a great idea, the way they're constantly playing golf. I mean, they have their off season a little bit kind of between December and January before the Tournament of Champions starts, certainly the elite players. But, golf is one of those games, particularly for the pros, where they have to be playing a lot of golf. I understand Greg's point of view, or Greg Norman's point of view, where, they're going to make so much money in these 8 events that they don't have to worry about the rest of the time. But if these guys are really, aspiring golfers and they, they love the game so much, they want to be playing it all the time, I can't imagine they'd be too happy to just have an off season from November all the way through to May.
I have the exact opposite opinion, where I feel like the PGA Tour is too stretched out over the year. I want it to be more compact in the year. I want it to be more summer based. I want it to be more from March to August, and for there to be a official off season pretty much for those players, because I feel like some of those players are getting burnt out by the end of the year, and some of those players are just dragging their feet through the tournaments.
Yeah, but to that point, a lot of those players don't play the tournaments. I mean, Rory McIlroy, for example, or a number of them are saying, I'm playing these 12, I'm playing these 15, there might be 40, but that's allowing the bigger PGA opportunity players to earn some recognition of succeeding rather than playing in 8 tournaments. Rory McIlroy winning 7 of them, and Morikawa, whatever, winning the other, whatever. And them saying, why am I bothering here? Because I can never get my nose in edgewise. That's why the tournament, and also from the sponsorship, and also, your tournaments in Hawaii, they're in Costa Rica, they're in different parts of the world, because it gives, from a tourism perspective and the golf perspective, the opportunity to travel there. So I don't think players are burned out. I think they're burned out if they decide to pick too many of them. But most of the players will only pick 15 and say, that's my season, and that's as far as I go. So I think it just offers more players opportunity to earn a living by having 40 than it does by having 8 and saying to a core number. And to some extent, I would use the word mercenary here, because I believe this league by Greg Norman is really about the love of money and wealth. It's not about prestige. It's not about honor. It's not about the trophies, because they have no standing. The only thing we're hearing about at the moment is the checkbook. And I think there's a lot of players who say, back to, I think, a point Owen made earlier on, I didn't come into golf just to be seen as a mercenary. And I think that the PGA offers them a great alternative to be able to become a professional and be proud of it.
100%. I think one of the things we all love in golf as well is that underdog story, when somebody who they shouldn't have a right to win a golf tournament, all of a sudden they're there on Sunday with a chance. Oh. And I don't think anybody can argue that this is making golf a completely elitist society by going this way. Personally, I'll never forget when Paul Dunn was leading the Open Championship after 54 holes, an amateur, back in 2015. It's even hard to believe it was that long ago. But I mean, if something like this was to follow through, we'd never see stories like that anymore. And all of a sudden then, it would almost lose its appeal, certainly in my opinion, watching the same 48 guys every single week in this, as I said, elitist society, as opposed to a place where other guys can get their chance from rising up the ranks.
What was the English player in the recent tournament? Richard Bland, is it?
Richard Bland.
Yeah, 49-year-old. He won his first event at the Masters, I think on his 850th tournament or something, and the world bowed at his feet, and I think he rang his mother afterwards or something. She says, I've been waiting for this all my life, and he says, so have I. It was a fairy tale story that you can't bring into a mercenary environment in a sport. If the dollar is what you're after, then people are going to quite simply dislike you at some stage, because they're going to say, you don't care about me, it's just about the prize money. So I think it's going to be a hard sell. At the moment, what seems to have, where this is, I think, has gone wrong, is the money has come in first, and then the idea to build it has become second. And because, to some extent, an element of sports washing with regard to the money, there's a lot of players in principle will not participate because they believe that this is sports washing. And they're very worried about their brand outside the game of golf how it will be affected if they participate in the league. And that's where Rory's come out very strongly in his own disposition about not attending. And that's where Nicholson at the moment is being hammered because he said some things that he regrets he said. And the golf industry is disappointed that he said them because that's not what golf is. And just to that last point, I would suggest for many a golfer, I would suggest golf is one of the most honourable sports in the world. I'm not saying it is the most, but it's one of the most. Partly because from cradle to grave, you play golf. So whether you're 75 and somebody cheats or whether you're a PGA and somebody cheats, the same ethos of value of honour is destroyed by the suggestion that someone would ever do that in a golf course. That carries on into people making their living from it and what it represents to the people that they follow or the fans that, there's a strong allegiance, I think, to that in the game of golf for all of us as supporters.
So you guys think the team format is going to come to a dead end in a few years? Or it might not even start, honestly.
Well, it's tough when you look at something like this because obviously it almost does seem like there's too much money in it for something not to happen. And I think there's been so much talk in golf over the last few years about rolling the ball back, the distance debate, all that sort of stuff. So many debates about modernising the game, even to something as simple as pros being able to wear shorts when playing golf now as opposed to just, the trousers the way they've always had to wear. Personally, I like all the old traditions about golf. That's one of the things I really love about the game. But then, again, go back to exactly what you said about teams. I think there probably something will come about in the next couple of years because there's just too much talk about it for it not to happen.
Because I feel like the game of golf is growing so much. Maybe this isn't a bad way for golf to have a little subsection, to have a team format where it may not be the best players, but it's like the secondary league. I know we have the Corn Ferry, but no one really follows the Corn Ferry besides all the actual players.
Yes, yeah, I understand that.
I think there's a lot of people attend the Corn Ferry events. I don't think there's spectators at the Corn Ferry events. There might be a second tier of the PGA, but the locals go to them because that's the beauty about golf. Wherever you are, I went to the Women's Open last year in Fairfield. The seniors, wherever you are, if you get a chance to see the pros, you go. Whether it's the PGA or the Corn Ferry, the PGA is the superior, the king of the crop. But I'd be the first to go to a Corn Ferry event if there was one 40 miles away over this weekend to see a few players that I've heard of and just to sort of see the game. So I don't think it's not just the Corn Ferry players. It's an important league.
Yeah, I totally agree, but I see where you're coming from, Nate, in the sense of will the appeal still be there if they're the guys who are taking this place for Greg? Because I know you have to assume the way Greg Norman has set this up, he wants the 48 best players in the world to be in this league. He does not want guys that are a step down below. And I mean, that's been his vision, but I think he's starting to realise now, particularly after the guys have come out and pledged their allegiance to the PGA Tour, that that's not going to happen. Certainly the way he sees it right now, it's not going to happen.
Especially not this year.
No.
Well, you raise a great point. But what happens if 48 players of the Corn Ferry Tour end up in the Saudi League? I mean, from Greg Norman's perspective, he has to run the tournaments because he has to have 48 golfers in the golf field. And these guys are going to say, whoa, this is party land because we're going to make a lot of money. But it's going to destroy any concept of it running a second year because, back to your point, Owen, if the top 50 aren't gracing that tournament with the prize money that's there, it's a defeat. It quite simply is a defeat. So I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't start at all.
It was lovely talking to you guys about this. Before we wrap up here, I want to ask you guys one question about golf. If you guys had to choose one tournament one professional tournament you get to play in, which one would you choose and why?
I think it's a toss up for myself between obviously the Masters or the Open Championship at St Andrews. I'm torn, but I'm going to have to go for the Open at St Andrews just because I know if I was ever to win a major championship, I would often say the Masters would be the one I'd like to win, but I know from my dad and from his kind of history of watching golf when he was younger, the Open means a lot more to him. So I'd have to say that just purely for the reasons and the connection to my dad and my family in the game of golf. So.
Yeah, obviously Owen's going to play this podcast for his father later on to make sure that he said the right thing there. I think the two tournaments you pick are two that I would pick. The Masters sort of rings, obviously, with regard to that whole sort of environment of the TV sense, it's very, very powerful. I think tournament-wise for me, it's the Ryder Cup, though. I mean, nothing touches that with regard to the game of golf. When you play on behalf of your heritage and your culture, as a team from all different parts of that environment in Europe specifically, I think there's nothing nicer to see the camaraderie that comes with golf and the honour. I think the last few years it's gone a little bit of roo-rah with regard to the fans, and a little bit of, we saw this season with regard to the waste management tournament in Texas, where took them 20 minutes to clear the beer off the green and the surrounding area. That is not golf. The decorum of golf, I'm not just being disrespectful about people having some drinks, even though I think there's too many drinks at the moment. But keeping it in place is very, very important. And the Ryder Cup for me is where I sort of genuflect at the tournament to say you bring a lot to the game of golf and to the cultures we all represent.
Well, there you guys have it. Thank you guys for being on this podcast and sharing your thoughts. It's been a pleasure. And tune in next week for the next episode. See you guys next time.